Secular Choral Music, Middle Ages, Chapter 16, entitled Symbols and Puzzles, Machaut and the Medieval Mind, Guillaume de Machaut. So here we are in the late Middle Ages. The Crusades are a big thing about ending the Middle Ages and launching the Renaissance period. During the Crusades, which was several hundred years, a lot of ideas from the Arabs were brought back to Europe. And Guillaume de Machaut from France, but he was a poet-composer of the French Ars Nova meaning new art. He wrote sacred music, and he wrote secular music. Chanson is a French word that literally means song. And but when we say chanson, we mean it's a song. It's about love, and it's secular, set to fixed text forms. So the poetry had these forms: rondo, ballade, virelai. And it's like, what is that? Well, it's like haiku. When I tell you haiku, most everybody knows what that is: 3 lines and so many syllables in each one, etc. Well, each one of these also has some kind of a rhythm aspect that makes it a rondo or virelai. An ode is also a type of poem. And we're going to listen to this beautiful piece, Ma fin est mon commencement, right? Machaut's chanson employs a palindromic form and an enigmatic text to display compositional craft and challenge the listener to careful listening and thinking. And it's chant-like, but it's like chant-like that's gone and run amok. But wow, it's pretty darn cool. So there's always been a human fascination with riddles and puzzles and trying to solve things, and linking mathematics with music, geometry of music, and order and balance. And in the Middle Ages, the quadrivium of education with music, mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. So the importance of music was as equal to other subjects. Medieval minstrels and court musicians. So we're in the secular, we're outside the church. And it's my understanding that they would have Mass on Sunday, and then after the Mass in the late Middle Ages, people would go out and there would be secular music being played outside the church. And the church didn't like it, but this would happen when people don't get to see each other, and they get together on Sunday, and they celebrate a little bit with secular music. So minstrels, troubadours, and trouvères are pretty much the same thing, except where they were located, they had different titles. So troubadours performed for the nobles at feasts and for everyone at tournaments and festivals. Troubadours often had other men along with them to help entertain with dances and stunts. These men were called jugglers, and troubadours sang songs of great battles and songs of beautiful ladies. And they brought the news from other areas to say that this person, something happened. And so it was more than just entertainment. It was like a news thing that people got together and wanted to find out what's going on. It's like, who's president? So these crusades, horrifically violent, but contact with Arab world increased the knowledge of Europeans. Many Arab musical instruments became models for Western instruments. The lute, the lute is a pear-shaped, and it is based off of an Arabic instrument called l'oud, L''oud, oud, and looks very similar to the modern well, to the Baroque lute and the Renaissance lute. These were instruments of those particular time. But in Spain, they had the vihuela, which was really the same thing as a lute, but it was shaped like a guitar because they didn't want to associate with any Arab culture. Because remember, they were occupying Spain until 1492. Here we go. The Crusades, this craziness. And here we have the Holy Roman Empire and we have the Byzantine Empire. And this is showing the First Crusade, 1096, Fourth Crusade, 1204. So this is Roman Catholic. This is Greek Orthodox. All of this was part of the Roman Empire, remember? And then we end up with this being Islamic over here, territory, half of Spain at this time. And this is Constantinople, right? The Bosporus Strait. And so this was the eastern part of the Roman Empire that continued on. And basically, we're talking about religion now when we say the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, but a little bit of government too when we talk about this. And thousands of people would be involved with these crusades to go, and they did capture this, right? Roman Catholic territory. It's showing a detail of they recaptured this area for a while anyway. Poland shows the Holy Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire really went up to the Danube River and it didn't go past generally, right? So this was not part of the Roman Empire, and this was not part of the Roman Empire. But over here in Vienna, which I had the good fortune of being there like 1986 and driving into Czechoslovakia and through Poland. Well, not Poland, yeah, well, Poland later, but in Austria, you drive down the road and then you'd see these structures out in the distance and like ruins, and then come across a place on the road and it says signs, and you stop and it's actual remnants of Roman structures are still there, and they don't look that old. It's just amazing that is just still there. Manuscript and illumination of the crusading Christians defeating the Muslim leader Saladin, circa 1460. Some nastiness going on here. A Turkish military band with mounted players of trumpets, cymbals, and drums. They apparently had a lot of music, and even though they were not necessarily militarily threatening, they were in Vienna when Mozart was alive, and he heard Janissary bands. Manuscript and illumination of the crusading Christians taking Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade. I think things passed on and off. So we said that was the Fourth Crusade was through 1204, right? But it was only a temporary that they were held Constantinople, because it really didn't fall until like 1452, 54, something like that. This is in a castle. When most people think of castles, an image of the king or lord might come to mind. However, they were greatly outnumbered by the other hundreds of people that lived within the confines of the wall. Not only did the ruler of the castle typically live with their entire extended family, but the castle had to be manned by soldiers and maintained by countless servants. Basically, a castle held a small village. Not to mention that the lords of castles often had guests who brought plenty of their own people with them. The castle was a very crowded place. The Ars Antiqua, okay, the Ars Nova. It's like the old art and the new art. First half of the 14th century. This man wrote a book, and he called it the Ars Nova, and it had a treatise about the innovations in rhythmic notation characteristic of new music. Emancipation from the rhythmic modes dominated by triple meter of the preceding age and by the increased use of the smaller note values. Remember, I told you that the perfect meter was 3 and imperfect meter was duple meter. So the Ars Nova is between in the 14th century in France. Then in Italy, developments in rhythm, meter, harmony, counterpoint, a lot of complex compositional rules to make the whole thing work. Here it says a polyphonic chanson is performed with voices and lute in this miniature representing the Garden of Love from a Flemish manuscript. Lutenist singers. Sample page of manuscript, secular music, but all of the ink work on the side of the page. Wow. So Guillaume de Machaut, right? 1300, 1377. And he was a cleric, right? Some kind of a part of the church, and he was a courtier. And I know it's fascinating to learn that he died on horseback in a battle in 1377. And as he wrote his music, he kept it aside because he wanted it to carry on after his lifetime, which was not a normal way of philosophy of handling things. Spent final years as a priest. These types of patterns were very popular, right? Octagonal maze in the marble floor of the Cathedral of Amiens in France from 1288. So Machaut would have seen these kinds of floors. Well, isn't that amazing? These different designs. This piece of music, the words are a palindrome, a word phrase or sequence that reads the same backwards as forward. For example, madam or nurses run. The B section is the retrograde of the A section. 2 upper voices trade parts at the midpoint. Bottom voice retrogrades at midpoint. Very complex. Kind of like this pattern, right? How it all fits together. And it's like, how does it fit together and work? But the music is the same way. So it's for 3 voices, a cappella, non-imitative polyphony, in duple meter, syncopated, long melismas, hollow cadences. So the importance of the Ars Nova, because much of the Ars Nova music is secular, non-religious, the Ars Nova is the first true departure from the church music to music as a humanistic art. The music is of extraordinary, often daunting polyphonic complexity with rhythmic systems carried to unbelievable extremes, new classifications of consonance and dissonance, and new compositional genre. They use a technique called isorhythm, which is just what it says, isolates the rhythm from the melody. And they had the color and the was the melody, and the talia was the rhythm, 2 basic concepts of music. And they had them separated and put them together somehow to make music. Isorhythmic music in which complex rhythmic patterns are repeated over and over again, even as the pitch material does something completely different. Right? You're manipulating the pitch and the rhythm separately and not at the same time when you write a song. You might have, it's like, I think I've said this before, a rhythm that's 4 measures long and a melody that's 6 measures long. And you say, well, if you do yours 6 times and I do mine 4 times, we'll end together. Say, oh my gosh, this piece of music, and even has the words, my end is my beginning and my beginning is my end and my true tenor. A challenge. Let's listen to this piece of music. Here's another piece of music in isorhythmic style, right? It has two different love songs, one in soprano and one in a tenor voice, and it has a third part with an instrumental accompaniment, which is a melody from plain chant. So you have instrument, plain chant, and then two different songs sung at the same time. And the music is through composed. We'll use that to describe the form. That means they evolve as they go and feature no particular pattern or repetition. There aren't sections. It just starts and it goes. Let's listen to the music.
J'essaie des vrais